Kristen here, and today we are talking about Netflix's brand new series, First Kill. Based on the short story by V.E. Schwab from the Vampires Never Get Old Tales with Fresh Bite anthology, falling in love is tricky for teens Juliette and Calliope. One's a vampire, the other is a monster hunter, and both are ready to make their first kill. First of all, what I really loved about this show was the aesthetic. The theme song alone got me, and I think really shows the vibes of this show, which is that it's a little bit campy and it doesn't take itself too seriously. There's also a lot of themes and things in this show that just kind of reminded me of other shows that I enjoy. Like, there was this voiceover that Juliette's doing that just sounded so much like Joe from You. The whole, like, star-crossed lovers is very like Romeo and Juliet. The fact that we're following this vampire trying to kind of blend in this human world and that there were monsters in it reminded me of like Disney Channel's Zombies. And then there's a little bit of a tease towards the end that we're gonna get into this like cat and mouse kind of game if we get a second season that really reminded me of Killing Eve. So if you like that vibe of like Romeo and Juliet, zombies, Killing Eve, but with like a little bit of a campy twist, then you might really enjoy this show. When it comes to the focus of the story, obviously the heart of it is this romance between Juliette and Calliope, which I have to say I was really excited for this like fun supernatural story to be led by this like lesbian relationship. And I think the photos and the key art we got ahead of the show, the chemistry was palpable. But I have to say, as I started watching and, you know, getting through the season, I think the chemistry was not quite there. I think Sarah Catherine Hook, who plays Juliette, was like really believable. She seemed like really committed to the romance. And then with Amani Lewis, who plays Calliope, there was just something that wasn't like fully connecting. Another thing that I really loved about the show was the vampire lore that they set up, which is something that I personally had never seen before. So it all starts when Juliette and Calliope are at a party. They're, you know, the next ones to play 7 Minutes in Heaven. Juliette is very attracted to Calliope, and Calliope is kind of intrigued by her for a number of reasons. I think, you know, in part she's attracted to her, but also in part she's like, you're a daywalker, like, I know that you are a monster. And then when their hookup gets a little bit too intimate, Juliette ends up biting Calliope. Calliope stakes her, but Juliette doesn't die, and that's kind of where things take off. So first of all, that was just a very intense way to end that first episode, where you're like, whoa, where can they possibly go? You just killed the vampire, right? Except, no, we're about to get into the lore. This is when we learn that Juliette is a legacy vampire. That's when someone is born a vampire. They are not like bitten and turned into one. They're purebloods. They're like nearly impossible to kill. We still haven't even learned yet how you can kill them. They can go out into the sun. They can eat human food. Their blood can paralyze you. They can create other vampires. When they bite you, the bite fades away, so you don't even know that you were really bitten. And those bites can create a psychic connection between the vampire and the person that they bit, which is what ends up happening between Calliope and Juliette. And in this story, they take that lore all the way back to the Garden of Eden. You know, we know the story of Adam and Eve, but this is the story of Eve and Lilith. And I love that we've been getting all these like mythologies around Lilith. You know, they did that in Chambers, they did it in Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. There's just a bunch of stories now taking these, you know, characters or people from, you know, literature in the past, or, you know, things from the Bible and things like that, and reworking them and flipping them on their head, and I think that's so interesting. So in this story, Eve and Lilith go to the Tree of Knowledge. Eve takes the apple, eats it, gains knowledge, while the snake offers to bite Lilith and give her eternal life, thus making her a vampire. Thus making her not even just a vampire, but the first vampire, the first legacy vampire. And I just think that opens up so many intriguing places to go, because, like, it's kind of making it seem like vampires go all the way back in the Bible to, like, you know, the Garden of Eden. And being a legacy vampire means that Juliette's family is distant relatives of Lilith. These legacy families, they're matriarchal, they're very elite. The most powerful family is the one that is the keeper of the Emerald Malkia, which is that serpent that can turn you into a legacy vampire. And Juliette's family is that family. Her grandmother is the keeper. You know, they have special ceremonies, they have like vampire cotillions, they have all these rules, one of them being that like a legacy vampire, it's pretty taboo for them to be with a non-legacy vampire. Of course, that's the situation with Juliette's parents. Although we do end up learning that that snake even has the power to turn someone that was previously just a regular vampire into a legacy vampire. You know, you can open the door to that exclusive club, but there may be some consequences, like, oh, you know, maybe accidentally eating your mother-in-law. So of course, while we're learning all about this, we're also learning about this monster hunter family that Calliope comes from, who are members of the Guardian Guild, which is this organization to protect humans from monsters. And I really like that they decided to go the monster hunting route versus just vampire hunting, because I think that opens the door for so many other magical beings to come into play, which would be really cool. I mean, this season we already got some zombies and ghouls and some other stuff going on. And even though they're on opposite sides of the coin, these two families have a lot in common. I mean, they're both trying to raise a strong female leader in their daughters. They are prepping them for their first kills, which is sort of like a coming of age moment for each of them. I also like that this show brought up that idea of like, who really is the monster? And it kind of depends on the perspective. You know, for the vampires, the monster hunters are the monsters, and for the monster hunters, the vampires are the monsters.
Juliette and every legacy in Savannah dies tonight.
Run now!
And I think that like is powerful, and like the way that you look at history can maybe paint certain people in a certain way, and if you flip the script a little bit and see things from a different perspective, you know, it might completely change how you feel about things. So you got Juliette and Calliope falling in love, coming of age, trying to deal with the chaos of their families not wanting them to be together.
We will always have problems.
Which all ends up coming full circle in the final episode. You know, with Juliette's family, we've always thought her brother Oliver was this black sheep that, you know, as much as they're vampires and killing people, like, he's doing something worse, you know? And we end up finding out at the end of the season that it's actually her sister Eleanor who sort of was the one behind all of that. I don't think it was super clear. They kind of made it seem like Oliver was just blaming her and like, oh, she manipulated me, but I think what they were trying to insinuate more was that she used her powers of manipulation as a vampire to even make him do things that he didn't want to do, and that, you know, made the family turn on him. But I don't think it was fully clear, and because of that, it felt a little bit lackluster, and like it minimized kind of this big reveal that Eleanor was really the evil one. But Oliver's whole plan really was just to get revenge on her. At least that's what we thought, but it seems like he has even more up his sleeve if the show gets a second season. And then on the other side of things, you have Calliope's stepbrother Theo, who, you know, has been traumatized his entire life because his mom was literally killed by a legacy vampire in front of him as a child. Things kind of take a turn to the point where, again, here we got Eleanor again, coming in, making a mess of things, kind of through manipulation, making his brother kill him. It looks like Theo's about to die. He kind of comes back a second, and I don't know why, but instead of just calling an ambulance or something, even just leaving him, Juliette decides that the best way for this monster hunter to die with dignity is to drain him of his blood, which seems like the dumbest thing you could possibly think of. I would never think that, oh, this monster hunter who's fought his whole life, you know, to protect humans from monsters is going to want his blood drained. That's the way to, you know, let him die with dignity. It made no sense.
I didn't know what I'd done. I never...
You turned my brother into a monster. That's what you did. And you knew that's not what he was asking you to do.
Instead, she ends up turning Theo into a vampire, turning him into this thing that his family hates, that he hates so much and has literally fought their whole lives against. She turned him into one. In the end, Theo ends up getting paired up with Oliver and his girlfriend to prepare for some kind of bigger revenge that Oliver's planning that involves bringing about all these other monsters. So that I thought was a really cool ending, but I will say that whole last episode was very messy, very confusing. Some things, like I said, just didn't make sense. But what it does set up, again, is that cat and mouse chase for the future, that Killing Eve sort of vibe between Calliope and Juliette, because now Calliope hates Juliette, right? This was the love of her life. She just turned her brother into the thing that she hates the most, that they all hate the most. And Calliope's like, I'm gonna spend the rest of my life learning how to kill legacies, and you're the first one up, Juliette, so you better start running.
I will spend the rest of my life trying to figure out how to kill you and every legacy like you.
And so that I thought that was like a cool ending to like launch us into a second season where we're gonna get more monsters and also have this, you know, like I said, Killing Eve sort of back and forth between these two. While First Kill wasn't perfect, it was a ton of fun. I think that they could develop the chemistry between our leads a little bit more and maybe just kind of solidify the story a bit, but the world building that they began and that lore that they introduced I think is so cool, and what really intrigues me about the show. The fact that they're going all the way back to like the Garden of Eden and Lilith is the first ever vampire, like that's so fascinating to me, and I hope that they explore that more. And I mean, hey, if she's the first vampire, vampires live forever unless something goes wrong, so could we even eventually be introduced to that original Lilith? I enjoyed the love story, I enjoyed the kind of direction that they went in and sort of the inspirations that they pulled from, you know, Romeo and Juliet, Killing Eve. I loved that lore, and I loved the campiness of it, you know, that it wasn't taking itself so seriously, that, you know, things were not perfect, and I thought that was a lot of fun. It felt a little scrappy, you know? I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. Did you check out First Kill yet? Make sure to leave a comment down below and let me know your thoughts. Did you love it? Did you hate it? I can't wait to hear what you think. Consider subscribing if you like my videos, and if you want to talk more TV and movies with me outside of the comments section, check out the exclusive Discord available on my Patreon at patreon.com/kmaldo. If you like this one, you can check out more of my videos right over here. See ya!